Now don't forget, this is all Yale University here, November of 2016. That's almost into 2017. Well, this was long before that. I presented this to these same people, and they just dismissed it. Now they have, I think I said something like 175 reads or something. I mean, just almost nobody's paid it. Look, 174 views. I mean, nobody's sharing it. Nobody cares about these. And this exactly states what I had presented, which they would not allow me to present. And here's all the evidence right here. And the DNA tests and CAT scans, specimens, all quite available. And this is what freaked them out. You see that? That is a hair follicle. All right? In us, you need, you could see them, but a nice magnifying glass helps. But in this one, this is a hair follicle. I have giants. That's where the erector pili muscle attaches, right there. You see that? That's where the hair comes up the top. This is literally the hair. It grows down and then comes back up. That's the vein and artery right there. And that, my friends, the erector pili muscle on the other side is the sebaceous gland. There it is. This is what blew their mind. Oh, you're giants, and they really were not very nice. I didn't think they were very cordial whatsoever. I had the evidence, and they refused to see it. I had the DNA test. They refused. They said, "Oh, there must be a mistake." But the people, as far as I'm considered, this is the worst case of fraud that I've ever seen. And this is all these flat. This was DNA tested. This is a human lung, flat as a pancake on one side. And nobody's just denying that's a human lung, and it's been DNA tested. The depression of the heart was here. The guy died laying flat like this. This is a human lung with half the pleura, which is this coating, eroded away. We're down to the alveoli. Same thing, flat as a pancake. Died like this, and then what happens is all these soft tissues, the fleshy stuff, erodes away, turns into mud. That's where all the mud came from. The red mud, where you see red clay mud, that's where there was a lot of fleshy decay. And then you get into organs, and some of the bones turn into stone. That's a bone, and they turn into stone because of the collagen. The collagen turns into feldspar. Feldspar is what they call aluminum silicates, and then all kind of other inclusive minerals and so forth in there. But primarily, it's the aluminum silicates coat everything. That's what skin is. Even feathers from my buddy here, Caesar. There's just feathers. All the coating on your body is made of collagen. It works against the water and all that. Now, this is, well, hold on. Let me organize myself. Let's start over here a little bit. Hold on a second. All right, you see this? I'm just going to go over these real quickly, and then I'm going to do some highlights. This was all before Yale published their paper about discovering this soft-bodied tissues that were all the creatures. Biota just means biology, life. We presented this head to them, which they would not look at, said it would have to be CAT scan, have to be this, and we did. We took it down to where they said, which is the University of Texas in Austin. Jim Burchell and Arlie Caudle. Arlie, I believe, was the one that discovered it in a mud bank in Kentucky. And I was working with Jim Burchell because he was also investigating all of the, the glyphs and so forth that were in these mud banks down there. And Scott Walter on TV dismissed it within, it was less than 1 minute on TV. He just looked at it and said, no, that's just fake. No, that's somebody carved that. Well, no, it wasn't carved. You see that? That's his nose. The flesh of his nose is moved apart. He said, Scott said, oh, that's just iron oxides. Well, yeah, that's what blood is. Red and black is the two iron oxides. The O3 style iron is the red. O2 is the used, it's the black. And they call this bone black. It's caved in here. I looked at this very carefully. And anyway, I went back and forth with Scott. That was a waste of time. And he's never spoken about it since, but you know, it's always authority. I'm the authority. I know what I'm talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, let's take a look at it. Nope, don't want to look at it. So that was him. Now, I wrote this book about Velikovsky and this head and all of my research in 2015, I think. Maybe it was 2016 early. I think it was January 1st, 2016 it was released. There's minds in collision. Velikovsky wrote Worlds in Collision, which created all these mud fossils. It created the flood. It created all the things that they're talking about at Yale. This one layer of strata is completely covered with water and everything else. And the reason, part of the reason, was not only did the flood push all the water over the earth, it broke up the deep, which is, if there's any water down inside there, which there is, they know there is, it broke that up, that came up, and in addition to that, the compression of this comet almost hitting Earth's atmosphere crushed the atmosphere. Whenever you compress atmosphere, it turns into water vapor, and it poured down, and it came down hot, boiling hot. That's what made all these things cook. It burnt off, and well, it didn't burn it, but it basically melted away the flesh and fat and all that, and that stuff turned into mud and different areas that have different chemistry based on what part of the body it was. And these creatures, as I showed you, this isn't even big, and that's a hair follicle. I have them all over my property. They're all over. I mean, they're everywhere. Nobody's ever paid any attention to them before. This fingertip is 3 feet long. It's 3 feet long. There's the fingernail. DNA tested. And the fingerprints are still on it. Watch. Here's the fingerprints. I had to break this piece off. Excuse me, because you can't get DNA out of this. That's like a rubber tire. It's keratinized cells. And then when I smack that with a hammer, it just popped right off. That piece came right off. It's just like it's glued there. And it's made to be used up. All right, that's your grip skin. I call it grip skin. So that came off of that fingertip. I showed you the head. I have another hand out here. This 3 feet wide, 4 feet wide, something like that. And that's the tendon that runs down. And the thumb goes off this way. And I have fingers and, well, here's one of the tips right here. That's a fingertip. I think that was one that's way out there. And it's, that was CAT scan, DNA tested. And there it is right there. You see that? That white one and the black one, the two different, that's the two different styles of blood, the red and the black. Of course, in the black and white, you don't see the color, but this is it right here. You see that? This one was here. This one was here. Now, this was when it was whole. I just broke this piece off here to see how it separated from the bone. And that's what they do. They break them right off of the bones because they don't realize it's all part of the fingertip. But it was there, and it's identical to that. You see that? That little hole right there is the vein, black blood. This little hole right here is the artery. It's the red blood. And that is where the bone matched up. And this is a thumb because it's offset. The bone isn't in the middle. So this was a thumb. This wasn't the tip of a finger. That's right. I have all kinds of parts from this. Knuckles, and I have the palm. Did I show you the palm? This right here. Yeah, I showed you that. And this is the grip skin from this one. The silver stuff is that peels right off. And that's the skin. That's just laying out in my front yard. Well, in the woods, but in the front. And this stuff is just laying all over. Now this was the CAT scan of this fingertip here. Oh, and this is the problem with the process that creates this. It's not a problem, but it is a consequence. You see this bone right here? You could see it here if you look real careful. But because of the what's called nucleophilic invasion and nucleophilic substitution, you don't see a whole big difference between this and this. It's basically been substituted with the stuff that's filtering through there. Now, there will be a taste of difference in the marginal edges. Usually you can see that, just a little bit. And of course you can see the blood vessels and all that. That's quite obvious. But that is where the bone was. And that was, this is this fingertip. And some other shots of it, you can see where the fingernail was and all that stuff. But it's primarily been completely substituted, just like this. Right? It's a new material that has invaded. Just like this bone. That's not a white bone anymore. It's been invaded by some kind of basalt or something like that. And just like this hair follicle. You see, it's all basically looks almost like exactly the same stuff. It's the nucleophilic substitution, invasion. But you can still see all of the, body part, the articulation of it. It's exactly what it was. And this had a flat side on the hair, so it was a curly-haired person. I didn't realize that. When I was showing it, somebody said, oh, yeah, it's a flat. Because I said, gee, it's interesting. It got a flat side. And then people started saying, oh, yeah, I got curly hair and it's flat on one side. I never knew that. See how you learn things? It's just amazing. You see how cool this is? That's a completely stripped lung, all the way down to the alveoli. See these little holes here? They're filled in with silicates now, but this is what they were. They were alveoli. They're holes. And that's where your air comes in and you transfer the oxygen into the blood. Now, this one here is where the red blood was, and that's the interstitium flap. Which is another, it's actually a separate body part. It's not part of the fascia. That's what they always thought it was part of the fascia. It is not. It is built into this body part. And that's the same thing on this one here. You see it right down here? There's some new things that have been discovered because of mud fossils, and the interstitium is one of them, which is a layer that's in between these two layers. And here's another lung that is all stripped apart. The pleura is away, and this is just like this, and it's flat as a pancake too. And they're flat because of the Great Flood. It's just like this one was too. Same thing here. Same thing with Caesar. They all died flat, laying there. And then when this snapped up here, his neck was laying flat like that. And it got snapped up off of there at some point. There was they did a little bit of digging out here, but not much. It was very shallow. It's right on the surface. Most of the stuff I picked up off of my stone walls and stuff I have around the property here. And they just, well, here. I'm just laying there. I didn't do that. I didn't dig that out. That sucker weighs 500 pounds probably. That's where the blood comes up in the back. This is the fingernail. It's 3 feet long. And this right here is where I broke it off, and that's where the fingerprints are. Right there. The fingernail ran down around this way. Your fingerprints start very close to your fingernail, and that's just that's this type of skin. Totally different than it down here. And this thing is saturated with blood, but you can't get blood out of a stone, out of the tip of a finger. You can't get blood out of a fingerprint, but you can get as much blood as you want from down in here and everywhere else. Once you break this off, you're down in it's raw blood. I mean, I'm serious. And it said in the report. Wait a second, hold on. See, here's more evidence right here. We had the results back in 2015, of September of 2015. 3 samples. One of them was that gigantic fingertip, the huge one, 3 feet long. Another was this long right here, Another was this fingertip here. Out of that hand, I have the hand, I have knuckles, all kinds of stuff. Now, this was very, very expertly done by Helix Biolabs. Very, very, very good people to work with. And, you know, they took their time. It took 3 months to do it. And whatever they did. But it was, they did all, I said, I want to be 100% certain. No cutting corners. He said, nope, we're going to do everything. And they did. And whatever they did here, it's all kinds of extractions and elutions and looking for these different genomic sequences. And I mean, they, you know, he was very, very, very thorough. I was very impressed. And that's what I wanted. Just like when I went to Yale. I went there because of the fact that they're not far from me. They're right down the street, really, about 20 miles away. Plus, you know, everybody said, go to Yale, which I did. They refused to see it, so everybody refused to talk to me, saying Yale thinks you're an idiot, so obviously you're an idiot. Basically, that's almost exactly the words I was getting. Was if Yale won't look at it, why should I? I said, well, you know, what do you say? So anyway, this is all, they had negative controls on all the stuff, and all 3 of them came back that they were human mitochondrial DNA. 2 of them were extremely dense. Excellent quality DNA was obtained from the 36-inch tip and the lung sample. Now, I want you to understand, I was the one that did the extraction. I did it very carefully, meticulously, and I drilled inside of these things, underneath the surface to where there was blood, and I extracted red quality blood. All right, now, these 2 had excellent quality. And here's what they came back: Homo sapien, mitochondrial B, and D loop. And this is the CTAG sequences and blah, 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 which proves that we were mitochondrial. That's the mother side. All right, and he said they were modern human. Mother side, modern human. Now, whatever that means. Because I said to him, is it basically where we are today? He said, yeah, basically modern human. Now, I'd love to have somebody else do it. I'm not going to do it again. This was not cheap. Had 7 CAT scans done by Jesse Garant and Associates, most wonderful people you have ever seen in your life. And they did them gratis because they realized what we had here, the CAT scans I showed you. Jesse and Fabio and the people out there, they're in the new book coming out very shortly. They're going to highlight Jesse's company in there because they did fabulous work. And same thing with Tom here at Helix Biolabs. These are the people that are denigrated by these universities that refuse to do their job and then take credit for my work. That's what I'm saying. That's what I showed you. If you could see it any different, I don't know. Here's the DNA. The CAT scans were done. Everything we did that Yale said would have to be done, we did. And all the results were positive, and it was refused. Now, that does not weigh well for academic integrity. Okay, my friends, I have been screaming about academia for quite some time, many, many years now. And I just discovered, well, I just might as well make my statements about what they consider academic fraud. Now, what is academic fraud? Defining it is the first task. Is it just an accident, or are they trying to cover something, or they're stealing something? Well, first task of the committee was to define academic fraud. In the abstract, the definition seems easy, even if the identification of fraud in individual cases is not. So we're talking about individual cases, sometimes hard to really define. Is a mistake just an accident? The definition of fraud distinguishes between honest mistakes and deliberate misstatements made with an intention to deceive others. Academic fraud involves a deliberate effort to deceive and includes plagiarism or stealing, fabrication, changing stuff, misrepresentation of historical sources, lying about something that happened, tampering with evidence, just deception, basically. And then here's the one that applies to me: selective suppression of unwanted or unacceptable results and theft of ideas. Now, that applies to academics. So, selective suppression by academics, not just the guy down the street says, no, I'm not going to listen to you. Well, if he was an academic teaching everybody, then he would have an obligation to at least listen to supported evidence, not just the nonsense, but the DNA reports, specimens, CAT scans, chemistry, all of that stuff. I did all of that. So as far as I'm concerned, this was suppression of unwanted, unacceptable results. And then they took the whole thing and published a paper in 2016 saying that they're the ones that discovered it. 2016. Now, I had all of this presented long before that to these exact same people. Probably, this is Yale, 3 of them here from Yale, and then there's one from University of Adelaide in Australia, and one from University of California, but the other 3 are from Yale. And this is where I'm right down the street from Yale. And Derek Briggs was the guy that I could put my hopes on, and boy, I'll tell you, it's a big mistake. So now they're taking credit for it. And they only have 174 views and 0 shares. And this was like 6 years ago. Nobody's heard that they supported a worldwide flood. And that's exactly what they're saying here. It's exactly what they say. All right? It's worldwide on one single layer. All of the things, macroscopic, multicellular, everything died and was petrified in this specifically exquisite manner, soft body preservation, exceptional preservation, worldwide. All right, this one layer happened just like that, rapid, early stage precipitation, silica cements. That's all the body runoff. It creates silica cements. And it's created all the mud fossils. There it is, and so let's see why, this is a little upsetting. I did all this work and presented it to them, not just hoping they'd come and ask me about it. No, I kept knocking on that door, and that door was locked tighter than a drum. And then this comes out. I didn't even know about this until just recently. I didn't realize they had grabbed our stuff and taken credit for it, and then slid it under the paper, under the covers. As far as I can determine, only 150 people in the world have seen this. 100 and whatever it was, 174. 0 shares. This is the problem. I think this is an issue. I think this is a serious issue with Yale. And I'm not exactly sure how to address it, but we'll think of something.